In every marriage, there comes a time when the rose stops blooming. This doesn't mean that love has died or that you hate each other. It just means that everything is no longer new. For some couples, this can be the best period in their relationship, while for others, it can be the worst. It can be a turning point in your marriage because you need to take a serious look at things and decide if you want to continue living with this person. The expression, "she's cheaper to keep," was coined by a guy who had reached this point. It happens around the same time that you look at the girl you fell in love with and married, but realize that she has somehow been replaced by her mother, whom you hate. The slender female body has been modernized and embellished to such an extent that you no longer recognize it or even want it. At the same time, your personal relationship with her has developed to such an extent that what you dreamed of when you met has become reality. You are both completely honest with each other. First of all, you have to understand that people, even though we talk about it all the time and respect it, are simply not made for true honesty. We just can't handle it. When you love someone, you are almost forced to lie to them, and you do it regularly. We lie in thousands of different ways, and words are just one of them. But when we reach the age where we become fully formed individuals, when we become the best version of ourselves, we don't care anymore. We become so accustomed to who we are and what we are that we simply don't see the point in pretending. And then the lies stop and the moment of truth arrives. So you drink beer and have a beer belly. Let it hang out. You're lazy. Buy yourself a new couch. Your eyesight is poor. Give up your contact lenses and buy a bigger TV. You no longer need to hide your flaws from your wife because you've been married and living together for so long that you've gotten used to putting up with each other. Don't worry, guys. They do it too. Oh God, may the good times come. So I'm 54 years old. Thanks to some smart investments when I was younger and the downturn in the auto industry, I'm retired. Because of my engineering genius and a few patents I developed for my company, they can't afford to pay me anymore. And since my pension hasn't gone up, some of the employees realized it would be better for the company to buy me out. It was a win-win situation for everyone. The company paid me a lump sum of several million, and I no longer have to work for the rest of my damn life. Boom. On the other hand, they got the license to my patents, got rid of the expense of my exorbitant six-figure salary, and hired new engineers to breathe much-needed life into the company. The first year or so was great for everyone, until I started to get bored. My wife was thrilled with the idea at first. Now we had time and money for everything we had previously lacked. We started by selling our big house and moving into a new, modern apartment. With our only child now independent, we no longer needed a big house. The first 6 months were great. Then we started traveling around the world. Another 6 months passed before we realized that no matter where you go, it's just another place that's boring as hell for the people who live there. We settled into our new apartment, and, as is usually the case, addiction began to rear its ugly head. I began to notice new traits in my wife, Linda, that had never surfaced in 30 years of marriage. I still loved her, but I just didn't like her. I think it was because we were spending too much time together. There are 24 hours in a day. The average person spends 8 to 10 hours at work. About 8 hours are spent sleeping. On top of that, you need time to get to and from work. Add to that various hobbies and activities, and you've got a significant portion of the day. I suddenly realized that except for vacations, Linda and I only spent a few hours a day together. Now I was suddenly trapped with her 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, until one of us died. I was also suddenly confronted with the fact that we had nothing in common except our daughter, and that Linda, to quote the Temptations, was either a confused person or a complete idiot. First of all, let me say that I didn't marry Linda because I thought she was brilliant. I was wrong. As for sex, over time she began to use it more and more against me. You know how it is. If she wanted something and I didn't, she used sex to get what she wanted. It worked for the first few years until I suddenly learned to say no to her. Then she started saying no to me until she got her way. After about 10 years, I realized it was easier to do without her than to put up with her antics, so now we do it from time to time if we both feel like it. There are also many 50-year-old women who don't work on themselves but have good genes. Unfortunately, Linda doesn't fit into either of these categories. Over the years, she just let herself go, and her body and appearance have deteriorated. Linda still thinks she looks the same as she used to, and there's no explaining it to her. Part of our problem is that we're just different. I'm not perfect. I analyze everything. I'm a slave to my schedule, And I'm sure that over the years, some of my hobbies and interests have overshadowed my marriage, but I try hard and have never cheated on her. I've always been an average guy, so I've had to work harder. I've played sports most of my life, so even now, at a mature age, I'm still in good shape thanks to daily workouts and jogging. Linda, on the other hand, got her looks from her parents. Her body was a gift from God, so she never thought she needed to do anything to maintain it. This was one of our problems when we traveled. Every hotel we stayed at, I had to go to the gym because, as we all know, it's easier to lie down than to get up. Linda always thought I shouldn't exercise on vacation. She hated my need to run in the morning or lift weights. She said it made her feel like we were working on a schedule instead of just relaxing. On the other hand, I hated that we couldn't do anything because Linda couldn't walk more than a couple of blocks on flat ground and constantly wanted to eat. Every time I suggested a new activity, she would respond, "We can't do that. It requires too much energy." Or she would say, "We can't do that. That's for kids." The last thing I learned about the love of my life was that along with her body, her character had deteriorated. Over the years, she had become an expert in everything and a hypocrite at the same time. On the one hand, she told me that women could do anything men could do. She also told me that since we were both no longer working, and she had never worked, we needed to divide the household chores between us. I'm not a chauvinist, I was all for it. I got up early and exercised while Linda slept, and then I did all the housework. I did exactly half of what was on the list and left the rest to her. She easily talked her way out of most of the chores, saying that some things were simply not for women to do. One of those things, of course, was taking out the trash. I don't understand why women who swear they can do everything men can do have such a hard time picking up a bag of household trash, carrying it to the dumpster, and throwing it away. It's not about the weight because the average trash bag weighs less than 10 pounds and is mostly filled with paper, wrappers, and food scraps. But Linda insisted that women shouldn't take out the trash. She was convinced that there was a rule somewhere that prohibited it. In any case, it was the trash and not something else that caused my marriage to break up. It seems so silly for two people who love each other to draw such a line, but it was taking out the trash that caused our breakup. One Saturday morning, Linda came to me and asked me to take out the trash she had just filled the trash cans with. Of course, I had just started watching one of my favorite running competitions on TV. As an avid runner, I loved watching the world's best athletes compete in the sport I loved. Linda, who couldn't run a block even if a pit bull was chasing her, didn't understand that. "Stan, I need you to take out the trash right now," she said. It wasn't just that she told me to do it instead of asking me. It was her tone and her complete lack of respect for what I was doing. "No," I said, "if you don't take it out, you won't get anything from me for a long time." She grinned. "I haven't gotten anything from you in a long time," I replied. "I'll survive." For some reason, she got very angry and just walked away. Since it was just the two of us in the house, we hadn't made much of a mess, so the bag wasn't very full. A moment later, I saw her looking at me as she walked past with the bag. 5 minutes later, she came back, still looking at me. And that's when it all started. Things were very cold between us for about a week, and then she suddenly made up with me. I don't know why or how. At least, it seemed to me that it happened spontaneously. It was as if we had never quarreled. At least I wasn't angry. She was the one who was angry. Maybe she just decided it was silly and we should forget about it. After we made up, I started to feel guilty, but since things were good between us, I didn't want to pressure her. It's funny that when I tried to take out the trash, she wouldn't let me. She just grabbed the bags out of my hands. "I know what's going on," I said. "You're still mad at me." "No, Stanley," she said, kissing me on the forehead. "I'm not mad at you." "I understand," I said. You just don't want me to take out the trash because you still don't want to do it with me." "Stanley, we can do it whenever you want," she said. "Today probably isn't the best time unless you let me take a shower first." I couldn't understand what the problem was. Linda wasn't the type to give up on something like that so easily. For the next few days, I was tormented by guilt more than anything else. As Valentine's Day approached, I decided to splurge and buy Linda the diamond bracelet she had seen in a jewelry ad. I even went the extra mile and increased the number of carats. I spent almost $3,000 on a bracelet that I was sure she would love. I also planned an evening at our favorite restaurant. I ordered flowers and everything else to make Valentine's Day unforgettable for her. I didn't wait until the last minute. There was still more than a week left until Valentine's Day. At that moment, I felt really good. I was proud that I hadn't gone out on Valentine's Day morning and bought her the first cheap thing I saw. And for the first time, I didn't tell her that we had celebrated Valentine's Day so many times that if she still didn't understand that I loved her, then there was something wrong with her. The thing is, I think I started thinking too much. Of course, she didn't look any better, but her attitude toward me definitely improved. And as I said, the love was still there. But Linda became kinder and simply forgot some of our arguments, which gave me a reason to love her again. I noticed that over the past few weeks, we had been producing a lot more trash. We used to take out the trash once or twice a week. Now it was at least 3 or 4 times a week. What was even stranger was that Linda was taking much longer than it should have taken to just walk out of the house and throw the bag in the big trash can. When it was time to take out the trash the day before Valentine's Day, I decided to do it for her. She made a big deal out of it. I had to listen to a whole speech about how women can do everything men can do, and I decided to just ignore it. I turned on the TV and started looking for something to watch. Linda gathered the trash bags and headed for the door. I opened the door slightly and watched her turn the corner at the end of the hallway. I quickly ran down the stairs at the other end of the hallway and headed for the back door. I hoped I hadn't missed her, as it was quite dark out there. I was faster than her and got there first. These daily runs had gotten me in great shape. I saw our manager, Dino, doing something to his dirty BMW. The car was over 10 years old and in terrible condition, but he acted like it was something special. My 2010 Mustang GT looked and drove much better than his car. Linda also acted like his car was something special. I think it was mostly because she hated my Mustang. I wondered what the hell Dino was doing there, but I didn't pay any attention to him. I wanted to know what was so special about that piece of junk. Linda walked past the trash can and approached Dino. He was a fat slob. They immediately got down to business right there in his car. I waited until Linda returned to the building, then quickly ran back up the stairs. I was too shocked to even think about what I had just seen. Linda entered the apartment a few seconds after I sat back down in front of the TV. She acted normal as she walked past me. She wasn't overly cheerful. She wasn't on guard or anything like that. If I hadn't seen what I had just seen, I wouldn't have suspected a thing. I guess what they say is true. Women are much better at being sneaky than men. In fact, she was so much better than me that she almost caught me. She brought me a Dos Equis from the fridge and then looked at me. "What's up, Stan?" she asked. I didn't take my eyes off the TV. I didn't even look at her. "Nothing," I said, trying to make my voice sound normal. "Then why are your cheeks wet? Have you been crying?" she asked. "Oh, that," I said. "Those damn Jamaicans beat us in the relay again." I got so excited that I accidentally flicked my finger across my eye. "I'm sure they're doping, but no one can prove it yet." She gave me a stern look. "I think I'm going for a drive in the Mustang," I said. "At night?" she asked. "Why not?" I asked. "Well, I was going to take a long, relaxing bath first, but I was hoping we could," she said. "We could what?" I asked. "You know," she said, smiling. "It's been a while, honey." "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm not in the mood." And I really wasn't in the mood. She only wanted it because she felt guilty about what she had just done. I didn't think I would ever touch her again. I grabbed my favorite old leather jacket and headed for the door. She just stood there with her mouth open. When I opened the door, she called after me. "Stan, do you want me to go with you?" she asked. "Why?" I asked. "You don't like my car." Then I closed the door, literally and figuratively. Literally, by closing the door, I sealed off our apartment and prevented others from stealing or damaging its inhabitants and contents. Figuratively, I sealed off my broken heart and decided that Linda would no longer harm it or my well-being. As I walked to the garage, I noticed Georgina Martin. She was a very beautiful young woman who lived in one of the houses. She was tall and slender, with long hair that begged to be stroked. I smiled at her and waved. She responded, but not seriously. Georgina was usually very friendly, so this caught my attention. I walked over to her to ask what was wrong. "My stupid car won't start," she said, pouting. Georgina usually worked from her apartment. She did something related to the internet, so if she was going somewhere, it must have been important. "Well, call your boyfriend and ask him to pick you up," I said. "You deserve it." "You're the nicest person in the world, Mr. Laurel," she smiled. Georgina clearly couldn't stay mad for more than 2 minutes. "But it's for work. I have to go into town for a meeting to discuss rule changes and sign the annual tax and insurance forms." "Well, I'll give you a ride," I said. "I was just going for a drive to clear my head, so it's no problem." When you're done, if you can't get a ride from one of your coworkers, just give me a call and I'll pick you up. But that's too much trouble, she said. Honey, the beauty of old age and retirement is that since you never have anything to do, any job is wonderful, I said. Thank you so much, she said. I'd be in trouble without you. You're welcome, I replied. She took my arm and we walked to my car. When I started the big V8, the car shook with the vibration of the engine, as if awakening from a long sleep. A few seconds later, I pulled out of the office and left the building. When we got onto the highway, it only took 10 minutes to reach the city center. When we arrived, I followed her instructions and pointed to a spot on the GPS. Here, I said. Why did you do that? She asked. In case you need me to pick you up. I can find this place no matter where I am. I have no idea where to go, I replied. I'm sure I'll find someone to ride with, so I won't bother you, Mr. Laurel, she said. Georgina, I'm an old man. Understand me. Give me your cell phone, I told her. She smiled and handed me her cell phone. I entered my number and called my iPhone. Then I gave her back her phone. If you need me, you can call me right now, I said. It's really no problem. She got out of the car and I drove back to the highway. I enjoyed just driving. I preferred the highway to the streets because I didn't have to stop at traffic lights or for pedestrians. I also like to drive fast. Usually it's just me, my car, and the radio, and nothing to distract me. I took advantage of the perfect February weather in Arizona and let the warm night breeze blow into the car. In return, I let the loud music from the radio fill the silence of the evening as we drove. It was all about the numbers. A man in his 50s driving a car that looked the same as it did 40 years ago, mourning the end of his 30-year marriage listening to songs from 20 years ago at full volume. Today, I chose the album Sonic Temple by The Cult. The song American Horse helped me focus my anger and strengthen my heart before what was about to happen. It's not easy to go through the pain of realizing that the person you loved, laughed with, argued, and fought with for over 30 years has betrayed you. It's really not easy, but it's not impossible. I think it all comes down to the fact that, as I said, I love her, but I really don't like her. Maybe over the years we really grew apart. And this was just her way of dealing with the situation. She turned to him for something she no longer needed from me, or something she thought I wasn't capable of giving her. But I couldn't figure out what it was. I was in much better shape than Dino, even though he was younger. I had more financial resources and free time. The only thing I could assume was that he was just willing to put up with her mood swings and nonsense. Maybe she loved him, or maybe it was the other way around. Obviously, this wasn't the first time they'd done this. They'd done it before, and probably quite often. And then I realized that's why she took out the damn trash so often. She really thought she had fooled me, didn't she? I shook my head and laughed. I came to this conclusion just as Ian Astbury began singing the chorus. In my mind, I replaced she with he in the lyrics and sang along with Ian and Billy. She's gone crazy, completely crazy, trying to tame an American stallion. I was, of course, singing about Linda. My wife, with whom I had lived all these years, was simply insane if she thought I would put up with all this. And of course, if she thought she could have any effect on me after several weeks of treating me like shit over something as trivial as taking out the trash, she was completely insane. Like the American horse in the song, I could not be tamed or controlled. I really started listening to that song because I guess I always saw the American horse as a metaphor for my Mustangs. Oddly enough, now the song reflected my feelings about my dying marriage. And it was dying. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with a woman who didn't love or respect me. She and Dino would get what they deserved. I turned onto the next highway and drove in the opposite direction. I was heading home with a new fire in my head and a new dose of steel in my spine when suddenly the song Firewoman came on the stereo. My foot flew up and slammed into the gas pedal, and the harder I pressed down, the wider my smile grew. In my head, I began to think through all the steps I would need to take in the coming days. Each new idea increased my excitement, and then an electric shock ran through my body. I quickly braked and pulled over to the side of the road. Damn, I thought I was having a heart attack, but it was just my phone. My tape recorder was so loud that I didn't hear the phone ring, only felt it vibrate. "Hello?" I said. "Mr. Laurel," Georgina snorted. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I really need this ride," she said. "I'll be right there, dear," I replied. "Wait for me at the entrance where I dropped you off." I got back on the highway and sped toward her, leaving behind all thoughts of my misfortune and revenge. I raced through the night again, but this time I had a destination. All thoughts of my own pain were banished, at least for the moment. Georgina had been acting strange on the phone. It wasn't like her. She was one of the most cheerful people I knew. I wondered what could have upset her so much. As soon as I got off the highway, I turned on my GPS and quickly followed its directions. A few minutes later, I was at the building where I had dropped Dahlia off. She ran up to the car and jumped in as if she had just escaped from a nightmare. Home? I asked. Yes, please, she replied in a quiet voice. We drove in silence, lost in our thoughts. About 5 miles from home, she reached out and grabbed my hand. I didn't say anything. I was glad I could comfort her in some way. When I pulled into the garage, she exhaled with relief for the first time since getting back in the car. Thank you so much, she said. Georgina, it's okay, I replied. I watched her walk away. She seemed so different. The confident, beautiful girl I had seen just a few hours ago had somehow turned into a very frightened little girl. Georgina, I called after her. She turned and looked at me. If you need someone to talk to, I'm always here, I said. She nodded and headed for her apartment. I seriously considered leaving, but decided that what I needed most was sleep. Tomorrow wouldn't be as stressful as I had expected. It wouldn't be filled with things to do related to Linda, but it would still be stressful. I walked to my apartment and opened the door. Linda was watching TV. She smiled at me when I came in. I walked past her and just lay down on the bed. I couldn't understand why she was smiling at me like that. After a few minutes, I realized. She wasn't smiling at me, she was laughing at me. She was doing it because she thought I didn't know. Now I understood why she had been so damn nice to me lately. To her, it was all one big joke. She told me to take out the trash, I refused. And then she started her favorite game. She pulled out her Stanley isn't funny card, and I called her bluff. I guess it was my way of showing her that her game was no longer a weapon that could control me. She needed to find a way to win, and she decided to do it behind my back. On the outside, she was sweet, but on the inside, she probably thought I would beg her to take out the trash before she was done. Meanwhile, she was giving what she owed me to someone else as yet another punishment. Yes, it was all a big joke, but we'll see who's laughing when it's over. That night, when Linda went to bed, she came closer to me and finally started rubbing her feet against me. I pretended to be asleep so soundly that it didn't wake me up. Poor Stanley, she said. You must be so tired. You'll never know what you've lost. I love you, Stanley. Yeah, I know, I thought. I missed my chance to get some pathetic romantic attention from a woman who no longer interested me. When I woke up the next morning, I put on my running gear. It was usually a little chilly in the morning, so I chose tights and a t-shirt. Just as I was tying my shoelaces, Linda woke up. Stanley, you're awake, she said. Yes, I replied. I do this every morning, even though I'm sure you'd prefer I didn't. What are you talking about, Stanley? She asked. I've loved you for over 30 years. Would you like me to make breakfast? No, I'm going for a run, I said. Well, why don't you run on the treadmill? She asked. Because today is going to be a nice day, I replied. Stanley, we live in Arizona. Except for the middle of summer, when the heat is unbearable, every day is beautiful. Is there something you want to say or do? Yes, I said. See you when I get back. As I walked to the door, she looked shaken. Suddenly, some pieces started to make sense. Linda might have been laughing at me because she thought I didn't know what a slut she was, but there was a reason for that. Linda had somehow found out about the bracelet I bought her, and then it all made sense. One of her friends worked at the jewelry store, so Linda must have known about it before I even brought the damn thing home. She probably even knew about dinner because I discussed my plans with the jewelry store owner. To hell with her! She won't get a damn thing from me. Linda's words made sense, I thought as I ran away, but the whole of Valentine's Day didn't make sense. Men were expected to spend ridiculous amounts of money on candy, flowers, and jewelry to get the same thing we got most of the time. What was the point? To show someone we love them? Why not just say it? Does that mean women don't love us? Or are they so insecure that we need a special day to prove it? I wonder if there are Valentine's Day cards for people you don't love anymore? Maybe I should make some. I'd probably get rich. As I ran through the park, I saw lots of other people enjoying the sunshine too. There were walkers, skateboarders, cyclists, and other runners. They were all different. Some were just wandering around the park, enjoying the sunshine more than anything else, but in each group there were a few people who were seriously exercising. It was fun just watching the passers-by and fantasizing about them. There were some very beautiful women here, but Most of them were too young for me. I just didn't fit the role of a rich man looking for a young lover. But in a way, it was one of those things I had to think seriously about. What was I going to do when I was done with Linda? Damn, I'm only 50. I'm not young, of course, but I'm still young enough to get married again. But after living most of my life with Linda, I wasn't sure it was even worth thinking about. I quickly covered 5 miles, enjoying the sun, the pleasant, cool morning breeze, and watching people. I decided that from now on, unless the weather turned bad or I got injured, I would run outside. There was no point in staying or spending time with a woman who had cheated on me. On the way home, I went over everything I needed to do in my head. I needed to meet with a lawyer about the divorce. I also needed to settle some financial matters. And finally, I needed to start looking for another apartment or a small house. I was going to either sell the one we lived in or just leave it to Linda. When I got home, Linda was already busy preparing dinner. She was acting as if it were Christmas, not Valentine's Day. "Are you ready for dinner, dear?" she asked. "I'll take a shower and then go for a walk," I replied. "Jimmy McDonald is retiring this week. I'm going to invite him over for dinner with a few guys from the factory." "But Stanley, don't you remember what day it is?" she asked. "Yes," I replied. "It's Wednesday." "Stanley, today is Valentine's Day," she said, smiling. "Oh yes," I said. "Happy Valentine's Day, but to be honest, I completely forgot." She looked at me in panic, then smiled. "Stanley, do you think I should wear something special? I mean, do you have plans for tonight?" "No," I replied. "But if you want to go, you can." "Stanley, I was talking about us going somewhere together," she said. "Like a restaurant or a show, for example." "Oh, that's a good idea," I said. "But I think we'll have to wait until the weekend. All the good places are probably booked because it's Valentine's Day." I went to the bathroom to take a shower, leaving her standing there with her mouth open. When I got out of the shower, I got dressed and got ready to leave. My lawyer, Ollie, was an old friend of mine. I was sure he would see me without an appointment. I could hear Linda talking on the phone in the other room. "Arlene, he's playing some kind of stupid game. I wish I could just tell him that I already know about the bracelet and dinner. He's really enjoying himself this time." Yes, I guess little things like that add spice to a relationship when you've been together as long as we have. So I'll let him have his fun. Oh, I have to run. He's out of the shower. I waited a few minutes, then grabbed my keys loudly and opened the bedroom door. Less than 20 minutes later, I walked into Oliver's office. His secretary, an attractive brunette, looked up when I entered. "As far as I know, Mr. Hardy doesn't have any morning appointments," she said. "I'll tell him you're here." She stood up and went into Ollie's office, leaving me sitting there, thinking about how youth is wasted on the young. She showed me into Ollie's office and asked if I wanted anything to eat. I just smiled and said no, thank you. I found Oliver in his large office playing with one of the exercise machines. "That's not helping you, idiot," I said. "On a good day, you can barely throw the ball 80 yards. The problem isn't improving your throw. You need to train and rebuild your arm strength." "Shut up, Stanley," he sneered. "Just because you don't have a job doesn't mean you can come in here and bother hardworking people when they're trying to do their jobs." "Oh, I'm sorry," I said sarcastically. "I didn't know I was in the office of professional golfer Oliver Hardy. I thought this was the office of my corrupt lawyer." "And why do you need a corrupt lawyer, sir?" he asked with exaggerated formality. Since I had entered, he hadn't taken his eyes off the golf ball. He prepared to swing and raised his club. "I'm just filing for a divorce," I said as he swung the club. His shock at my words caused him to hit much harder than he intended. The ball flew across the floor, bounced off the ramp built into the hole, and flew across the room. It bounced and smashed the LCD monitor on his desk. "What?" he said. Oliver was the best man at my wedding. He was at my house so often that it felt like he lived there. He was my daughter's godfather and the executor of my will. "Damn it, Stanley," he said. "Stop joking around. You owe me a new monitor. You almost gave me a heart attack." "I'm not joking, Ollie," I said. "But why, Stan?" he asked. He looked almost as bad as if it had happened to him. "All marriages go through ups and downs. You just have to work through the rough patches. Everything will be fine. Anything is better than this, Stan." "Oh," I said. "I thought the worst thing that could happen was seeing her having fun with the guy who services the apartment in the alley by the dumpster. So go ahead, tell me what's worse." "Damn," he said. "You have to get rid of that whore. And I didn't get rid of her. Who knows what disease she could give you? And I'm not talking about STDs. There are all kinds of scary bacteria around trash. Damn, whatever you do, don't do it with her. So tell me, Ollie, where do I start? I asked. It's all been taken care of, he said. You hired me. I'll start drawing up the paperwork. We'll draw up an agreement that's fair to both of you. Then we'll send it to court, she'll hire a lawyer, and we'll all sit down and work something out. Most cases like this never go to court. What do you mean, fair for both of us? I asked. I've heard a lot of bad things about divorce. Well, Stan, you've been married for 30 years, right? You'll probably have to split everything 50-50, regardless of who did what. I looked at him like he was crazy. Get lost, I said. I thought you were a crooked lawyer. I can find that information on the internet. Stop thinking we're both your friends. We have to figure out how to keep that bitch from getting a quarter. Stanley, he said, looking at me. Oh, okay, I said. She can get a quarter, but no more. Stanley, that's illegal, he said. Even in the worst case, the judge will probably give her at least 40% of your estate. A quarter is only 25%. No way, I said. You've got your numbers mixed up. I was talking about 25 cents, not 25% of the money I've earned through hard work all these years while she sat on her fat ass eating candy. Before I give her that much money, I'd rather go to hell. There's no way I'm paying her for deceiving me. He looked at me as if he were seeing me for the first time. Let's look for loopholes, I said. Can I legally sell my apartment? Was her name on the deed when you bought it? He asked. No, I replied. Then technically you can. But if we ever go to court, it could get very messy. Is there a law that says two married people have to live together? I asked. No, he replied. It's assumed that you want to live with the person you married, but there's no law that says you have to live with someone. Is there a law that says I have to divorce her? I asked. No, there's no such law, he said. But if you just disappear, she can divorce you, and then you'll still have to give her half of your property. Okay, what if the apartment belongs to both of us and I give it to her? I asked. He shook his head and thought before answering. We spent the rest of the morning like this, then went to lunch. My goal was to figure out how to get Linda out of my life while losing as little of our property as possible. Perhaps it was wrong to do this to a woman I had lived with and loved for over 30 years, leaving her homeless and destitute. But I am a man. All the way to the car, I hummed my new song. If entertaining you is wrong, then I don't want to be right. Ollie and I discussed a few things besides getting rid of Linda. We also discussed what to do about Dino. He was also facing pain and suffering, but we had to choose the right moment. If I dealt with Dino before Linda, she would realize that something was going on. I needed to transfer the money and take care of all the financial transactions before filing the papers on Linda, and I could deal with Dino while cleaning up. On the way home, I transferred half of the money from my savings and investment accounts to new accounts that didn't have Linda's name on them. I went to the factory and asked them to remove Linda's name from my insurance policies and pension accounts. In our state, if I die, she'll still get the payments unless I specifically exclude her from my will. The guy in accounting asked me a bunch of damn questions about why I was doing this. I told him she had started a new business and was making as much as I was, so she didn't need it. You can never have too much money, he said. He smiled at me in a way that made me want to strangle him right there and then. Then he handed me the form for Linda. I couldn't believe this nonsense. She had to sign the form so the money could be taken out of my retirement account. I've been dragging his ass to that factory for 27 years. Linda had probably been there a handful of times in our entire life together. I just smiled at him and took the damn form. I already had a plan to get her to sign it. I had another form from Ollie that she had to sign too. It listed Linda as the owner of the apartment. I had given up on the idea of kicking her out. I was going to leave myself. But since I wasn't giving her any money, she would lose the apartment and her credit history would be ruined because she wouldn't be able to pay the bills. Our apartment was worth over $100,000. I was going to transfer the deed to my name and take out a loan for our entire share. Then I would move out and leave Linda to fend for herself. I was also going to take some questionable business steps that would result in the loss of most of our savings and investments. I won't be contributing to my retirement fund until I'm 65, which will give me about 13 years. Hopefully, Linda will be dead by then, if the law suddenly decides to give her some of the money. Returning to the apartment, I was almost in high spirits considering the past 24 hours. I was sensible enough to realize that I was still in shock from what was happening to me, and that soon, possibly very soon, the reality of the situation would set in. and I wasn't sure how I would cope. As I locked my car in the parking lot, I saw Dino looking at me. There was a smile on his face that seemed to never leave him. Only now did I understand why. "Nice car, Mr. Laurel," he said. I ignored him and kept walking. Before I reached the condominium, I changed my mind. I turned around, walked in the other direction, and knocked on Dahlia's door. A few minutes later, she opened the door slightly. "I already told you I don't have anything that needs to be fixed or checked. If the situation changes, I'll call you. Please leave me alone," she said. "I'm sorry, Georgina, I just wanted to make sure you were okay," I said. She opened the door a little wider. "No, I'm sorry, Mr. Laurel," she said. "I must have confused you with someone else. Would you like to come in?" "No, not if it's inconvenient," I replied. "No, a friendly face is always welcome," she said. I entered her apartment. She invited me to sit on the sofa and asked me to wait a few minutes while she got dressed. As she left, I decided to do something to cheer her up. I took out my always updated iPhone and called the flower shop. I told the woman at the flower shop who I was. She remembered me because my order was quite large and also because I ordered flowers for Linda from her shop whenever I had the opportunity. I asked if she had already sent the flowers for Linda, and she replied that I had asked for them to be delivered later that day, so they would most likely be delivered in the next delivery. I asked her to deliver the flowers to another apartment in the same building and told the driver that if he delivered them within an hour, he would get a big tip. Since the flowers were addressed only to the lady of the house, there was no need to change anything. 10 minutes later, Georgina returned to the living room. She looked a little calmer, but she still wasn't herself. "What happened?" I asked. "Where do I start?" she asked. "I'm sorry about what happened. I thought it was that idiot Dino. He's always hanging around my building. He knocks on my door at least once a day, saying he needs to come in and check something. But he never finds anything. And when I ask the other tenants, none of them have checked their apartments for such things. I think he's just some kind of pervert." Hearing Dino's name, she noticed my expression. My face must have given me away. "You don't like him either, do you?" she asked. "I hate that bastard," I said more harshly than I intended. "I'm sorry," she said. "So you know, I probably should have told you, but I stumbled across them when I was taking out the trash a couple of weeks ago. They were so busy they didn't even notice me. I just left the trash bags at the entrance to the building. He's such a pig, and I can't believe Mrs. Laurel could—" "Yeah, a lot of things are happening right now that I never thought could happen," I said. "You seem so calm," she said. "Only on the outside," I replied. "Inside, I'm a mess. I'm just trying to keep going so it doesn't affect me until it's over." "When did you find out?" she asked. "Yesterday," I replied sadly. "Nothing has changed since then. The whole world seems different." "If you don't mind, I'm going to ask," she said uncertainly. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to say the D word," I said. "Please don't say anything because I want it to be a surprise for both of them, but I've already made up my mind." "But you don't need to find out why she did it. Maybe she was forced to. Have you thought about what your life will be like? When my grandfather died, my grandmother died with him. That was more than 5 years ago, and only now is she starting to live again. For a woman her age, my grandmother is very beautiful, but she just can't imagine life without him." "What are you going to do?" she asked. "No," I replied. "No one forced her. She started it all herself. At least that's how it was yesterday when I saw them. And I'll be fine on my own. I'm young enough to start over if I need company. But honestly, I'd rather be alone than stay with a woman who doesn't really want to be with me. Or with one who lies to me. I'm sure she loves you," she said. "Maybe like many women these days, she just wants someone on the side." One of my friends was engaged to a medical student. He's finishing his studies in about a year and has a great job lined up at a hospital. They've been together for over 4 years, but she hardly ever sees him. So in the evenings, when she feels very lonely, she turns to someone else. I don't know how, maybe someone told someone, but anyway, he found out and broke off the engagement. She went crazy chasing after him and trying to explain that it didn't mean anything. He had to hire security. Anyway, now he's dating a girl who works in the hospital accounting department. We heard they're getting married soon, and my friend still can't get over it. She still loves him and keeps coming up with all these stupid plans to get him back. "I guess love and sex aren't necessarily connected these days," she said. "They are for me," I replied. "Unfortunately for me too," she said. "That's good," I said. "You'll be much happier in the long run." "Oh, I'm sure I will," she said. I still have a year and a half of school left, and as of last night, I don't have any money to pay my bills. Once my savings run out, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be completely screwed. What happened last night? I asked. Mr. Laurel, last night I went to fill out paperwork for the new owners of the company I work for. One of the owners looked at me and decided he liked me or something. He made me an offer I had to refuse. He was just disgusting. He's a fat old man in his 40s with a big belly and a bunch of gold chains around his neck. When I refused, he said I could lose my job, but I refused anyway. That's why you were upset, I said. What do you do for the living? She looked at the floor. No comment, she said. I don't want to talk about it, but it's honest work and it's legal. I looked at my watch. There were about 5 minutes left before the florist finished work. I'm hungry, I said. Mr. Laurel, I can make something for you, she said. I'm not the best cook in the world, but I can make a lot of different things. Actually, Georgina, I was hoping we could have lunch together. We could share our problems and maybe put our heads together to find a solution to our common problems. I'd love to, she replied. I'm not a very good cook, though. I try, but I just don't have a talent for it. I laughed when she said that. It took Linda years to learn how to cook, I said. She almost poisoned me a couple of times, but I loved her so much that I didn't care. Remembering that and how much I had loved Linda when we first started dating, I felt as if someone had stabbed me in the heart. I guess up until that moment, I had only thought about the bitch Linda had become over the years, not the beautiful girl I had fallen in love with so many years ago. I'm sorry, she said. Did I say something wrong? No, Georgina, I said. I just remembered Linda the way she used to be. In the end, we went to a small Italian restaurant just a few blocks from the house. We had a nice chat, and it dispelled some of my growing depression about what was going on in my life. I guess all those old sayings about misery-loving company can be interpreted in different ways. We were both unhappy, but each other's company lifted our spirits. Finally, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I drove us home. As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw a teenager walk past Dahlia's apartment and run to her door. We stopped just as he was placing flowers on the doorstep. A smile lit up Dahlia's face. Let's see, she said. I know they're not from Grandma. So who are they from? She looked at me and smiled. The delivery man returned to the door. Would you like to sign for them? He asked excitedly. Georgina signed the card and handed it back to him. I think I heard something about tips, he hinted. I think they must be big, I said. What's the biggest tip you've ever gotten? $1,000, the guy replied. You're a lying bag of shit, I said, making Georgina laugh. Okay, the biggest tip I ever got was $20, he said. I wanted to give you 50, I said. But you should have gotten it 2 hours ago. You get tips if you deliver the flowers within an hour of me talking to your boss. Damn, he said. That's why she put your flowers in the back of the truck. They were supposed to be delivered first. And that's why you didn't get a tip, I said. His face immediately became sad, like a sick puppy. But look at it this way. You got something much more valuable than money. You got experience. You learned how not to do your job. Now you'll do everything better and more organized. Experience is the best teacher. Thanks, sir, he said sadly. I'm going to run to Best Buy and see how many Xbox games I can buy with my experience. Maybe I can take my girlfriend out on a date with my experience. Happy Valentine's Day. Georgina smiled at me and pouted her lips, too. Okay, fine, I said. But I'm still not giving you 50. I gave him $20, and he and Georgina were happy. I felt good, too. Georgina kissed me on the cheek and said I made her Valentine's Day happy. I got back to my apartment at 3:15. Linda was there, and she was furious. She looked at me when I walked in. Where were you? She asked. Linda, I told you where I was going, I replied. I have some papers you need to sign. Why do I have to sign papers? She asked. Because, Linda, I'm going to die someday, I said. No, you're not going to die, she grinned. You're going to live forever because you run and work out. Your body is like a machine. Linda, healthy men die of heart attacks or cancer every day. They get into car accidents and things like that. When I bought this apartment, I signed the papers alone. I'm updating my will and noticed that your name isn't on the deed to the apartment. If something happens to me, you could kick me out and resell the apartment. Or you wouldn't be able to sell it if you needed money for medical treatment or for any other reason. Are you really thinking about what will happen to me if you... She began. Honey, nothing will happen to you because I'll never let that happen. We argue sometimes, and most of the time it's over really silly things, but Stanley, sometimes you surprise me. You really love me, don't you? You'd be surprised how much I love you, Linda, I said. I was sure that negative numbers couldn't be less than 0 without a special calculator. I put the papers on the table, and Linda signed them all, including the one I had supposedly slipped between the apartment papers. Linda had just taken responsibility for paying off the loan I had taken out against our share of the apartment and refused to take money from my retirement fund. She signed them only to move on to the next set of questions. So, Stanley, do you remember what I told you this morning? She asked. Oh, damn, I said. Linda, give me a couple of minutes. I need to go into my office. I went into our home office and opened Microsoft Publisher on the computer. I looked through the greeting card templates and made Linda a Valentine's Day card. I deliberately misspelled her name to really annoy her. A few minutes later, I returned to the living room. With the cheekiest smile I could muster, I handed her the card. Happy Valentine's Day, honey, I said. Her face took on the same expression as if she had bitten into a piece of toast with shit on it. Her mouth opened and she looked at me with a mixture of anger and confusion. Who is Limdy? She asked. See, that's the problem, I said. 5 minutes ago, you were sure I loved you, and now, because my old fingers pressed the wrong keys, you're angry. To hell with it all. That's why I hate Valentine's Day and all other holidays. A man just can't win. I made it to the bedroom and slammed the door. I lay down on the bed and fell asleep, fighting the urge to laugh. A few minutes after I lay down, Linda opened the door and looked at me. Satisfied that I was asleep, she went back to the living room and I could hear her talking on the phone. No, he hasn't done anything to me yet, she said. Well, wait a minute. He gave me a half-hearted Valentine's card that looked like he drew it with crayons. He even spelled my name wrong. What? Damn, no, I didn't get any flowers and he didn't mention a restaurant. Are you sure your boss said he made a reservation for us? What do you mean, maybe he's testing me? Oh, I get it. He's trying to make me mad so he can get my gifts. Okay, this game can be played by two. A few minutes later, the door opened and Linda climbed into my bed. She hugged me and started kissing me. I was terrified, but I wasn't going to get upset. I rolled over onto my back and muttered, "Leave me alone, I'm tired." She even sat up in bed. Stanley, are you okay? She looked at me as if she cared. Maybe her brain was finally working. Something's wrong here, she said. You've turned me down twice. Linda, in the last month since we started arguing about this and you told me we weren't going to do it for a long time, I've started focusing on other things, I said. Oh, there are things I want to do before I die, and I need to start making a list. I guess I overdid it this morning, so I'm really tired. Her eyes widened and she stared at me. Stanley, is there something I should know about? She asked. Have you been to the doctor lately? What's on your list? Maybe I can help you with some things. How much time do we have? And then I realized this stupid bitch had decided I was dying and had made a to-do list. She checked on me several more times that evening. Stanley, do you want to go out for dinner? She asked once. I'm tired, I replied. Stanley, honey, do you remember what day it is? She asked. It's Valentine's Day, and it's almost over. Thank God, I said. Now everything will go back to normal. Stanley, are we going to do anything for Valentine's Day? She asked irritably. I already bought you a card, didn't I? I said. She slammed the door so hard that the whole building shook. Around midnight, she returned to bed wearing a nightgown so thick that I thought she was wearing armor. She stood as far away from me as the width of the bed would allow and tried to pull all the blankets off me. She was so angry that I thought she was about to explode. All I could do was try not to laugh. The next morning, I woke up early and got ready for my run. As I was in the kitchen having a snack before my run, Linda burst into the room. Good morning, honey, I said cheerfully. Stanley, where the hell is my bracelet? She yelled. What happened to the restaurant and my damn flowers? Linda, are you high? I asked her. What are you talking about? Someone told me that you went to a jewelry store, bought me a bracelet for Valentine's Day, and made a reservation at my favorite restaurant, she said. But all you gave me was a stupid homemade card. I pretended to be offended and looked at her. At least I put some effort into the card, Linda, I said. What did you get me? I tried to get you something you've always wanted, she said. What? I asked. Be specific. I'm going to have to spend almost $3,000 on a new diamond bracelet. Another $200 for a personalized inscription on the back. At least $300 for dinner at that crappy French restaurant I don't even like. And then another 100 for fresh flowers. I buy you all kinds of new things, and you want to give me 50 years that mean nothing to you. Is that fair? Her mouth opened again, but she didn't know what to say. Linda, I'm old enough to understand that there are more important things in life than sex, especially more important than waiting and begging for it from a woman who doesn't like doing it with me or who is trying to use it as a bargaining chip rather than a way to express her feelings for me. She wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. So don't worry about it, I continued. Since having fun with you is no longer a priority for me, you no longer have any power over me. So why should I spend that kind of money on you? Knowing Linda as well as I did, mentioning the price of the bracelet she wanted to buy only convinced her that I had actually bought it. She probably would have turned the house upside down looking for the bracelet, but she didn't because it wasn't in the house anymore. I walked past her and went for a run. When I got back, I called and tried to get Georgina a job with a friend of mine who was looking for an assistant. The pay wasn't great, but she was thrilled with the opportunity. Over the next few weeks, Linda and I got along very well. A couple of times I followed her when she took out the trash and filmed her with my iPhone. I decided that the fact that she had already stretched out on Dino's car hood more than once was proof enough that our marriage was over. When I watched the second video, I realized I needed to take a third one because the second incident wouldn't help my case. It might even hurt it. She called Dino Stanley. He didn't care what she called him, and neither did I. When I got the third video, I knew it was time to leave. I withdrew all the money from my bank accounts. I found a new apartment just 2 miles from the old one and bought everything I needed to furnish it. I even invited Georgina over a couple of times. That evening, Linda got up to take out the trash. When she picked up the bag and said, "I'll take out the trash," I smiled and said, "See you later." "God, Stanley," she said. "You don't seem to care." "Linda, are you sure you don't want me to take out the trash for you?" I asked. "I can do it myself, Stanley," she replied. "Okay," I laughed. That was the last time I saw Linda for a long time. When Linda returned to the apartment that evening, I was gone. I did leave a few things where she would be sure to find them, though. I left the package from the jewelry store in the linen closet. The receipt for the bracelet was still inside. Linda tried to call me that evening and over the next few days. I didn't answer her calls or listen to her messages. My daughter called me, and I spoke to her. But I told her I wouldn't discuss her mother or the situation between us. Looking back now, I think that was a mistake. Because when it came down to it, my daughter had to choose sides in this war and she chose her mother over me. That hurt me the most because we had always been very close. A few weeks later, when it was time to make the first payment on the apartment loan, Linda discovered she was in deep trouble. She had already found out that I had left her only $24 in the bank, $1 for every successful year of our marriage. I wanted to explain to her what that meant, but it would have been one of those subtle jokes that lose their meaning when you tell them to someone else. Linda tried to borrow money from all her friends. She even tried to borrow money from Dino, but found out he had been fired. I sued the company that owned the apartment for the behavior of its employees. To keep the case from getting out of hand, they gave me money to leave. Dino was fired too. When Linda went to Dino to borrow money, she found out he had been fired, but she didn't understand why. When she went to his office, Dino wasn't home. Dino was in the hospital. It turned out that Dino had been beaten up by some guys who didn't live in our neighborhood. Linda never found out how Dino got hurt. She was too busy trying to find money to pay off the loan. In the end, she was evicted. Linda tried to explain to the finance company that I was the holder of the loan. They told her that they had a contract that she had signed, agreeing to pay off the loan and pay for the apartment. When she read the documents with her lawyer, he told her that she had been foolish to sign the contract, but now there was nothing she could do. He urged her to file for divorce so that she could get a share of our property. He arranged meetings with Ollie and presented documents with their version of the property division. Linda hoped that I would be at the meeting so we could talk. Ollie explained to them that I was in an alcohol treatment center. That was true. Ollie had personally checked me in there, but I was only there for a week-long seminar to learn how to deal with stress in my life. Ollie told them that I had lost most of our money gambling and in bad investments. He had all the documents we had purchased to prove it. The demand letters from several casinos cost me $10,000, but it was worth it. Ollie explained to Linda that she was doing the right thing because when the casinos came after me, they could try to collect from her as well if we were still legally married. Her lawyer brought up my retirement plan. Ollie remembered that Linda had signed a document excluding her from it. Linda realized it was over. She signed the divorce agreement, agreeing not to help me with my debts, and 3 months later, I was a free man. Linda moved in with my daughter and her husband. That's how I lost my daughter. Amber really thought I had just gone crazy with drinking and gambling and ran away from her mother for no reason, leaving her alone and destitute. After that, Linda was never the same. According to several friends of ours with whom I kept in touch, she sat in Amber's house and constantly looked through all our old photo albums. She gained a few more pounds and her life went on. I don't think she ever came to terms with what happened, and I'm sure she never took responsibility for it. On the other hand, things were different for me. Although we didn't have any serious conflicts, which seem to be at the root of many divorce stories, my life was more fulfilling and productive. I joined several volunteer groups and clubs. One group consisted mainly of single middle-aged people who did nothing but travel. The group had its own website with information about trips, destinations, costs, and how much we saved by buying and booking accommodation in bulk. I also ran and exercised every day. I participated in and won several short races in my age group. Now I seem to be limited to a distance of 5 kilometers. I thought I might try running 10 km in the summer, but deep down, I knew I wanted to run a marathon. The question wasn't if or why, but only when. My daily runs also became more varied. I quickly realized that at my age, I couldn't just go out and run every day. I started running mostly at a relaxed pace with 1 or 2 days a week of more intense running. Even what I did on those days was varied. Some days I would go to the treadmill and do traditional speed training. Other days I would replace interval training with hill running. Sunday, although I didn't have a run planned, was my day for long runs. I increased my mileage very slowly. I spent my evenings lying in my apartment watching TV or just riding around the neighborhood. A cleaning lady came twice a week. She often cooked for me and stayed for dinner a couple of times. She was a young woman of about 30, quite attractive. We exchanged a few awkward glances, and I was sure that a connection was developing between us, but I didn't make a move. From my point of view, if I started a relationship with someone I didn't love just to not feel lonely, it wouldn't make sense to break up with Linda. Besides, there's a big difference between being lonely and being alone. I was lonely, but I had enough people in my life who didn't let me feel lonely. At that point in my life, I was lonely by choice. But it seemed like everyone on the planet except me thought it was unnatural or just plain wrong. Everyone I met always wanted to set me up with someone. Within a few months, Georgina became my best friend and biggest supporter. She was the one who brought me back to life when my daughter broke up with me. Amber still believed that I had simply abandoned her mother and left her penniless for no reason. She also believed that I had become an alcoholic and addicted to gambling. I had lunch with Georgina 2 or 3 times a week, and we often had dinner together. We went to the movies and did other things that neither of us wanted to do alone. There was nothing romantic about it. Georgina was a beautiful young woman, but contrary to the stories on the internet, our nearly 30-year age difference did not contribute to a romantic relationship. She was like a replacement for the daughter I had lost, and I was the father she never had in her life. One evening, while we were having dinner, it all started. "Stanley, do you ever feel lonely?" she asked me. "No, never," I replied. "My life is so full that I never have time to be lonely. Besides, when I want to go out, there's a wonderful girl who goes to the movies and out to dinner with me." "Is she pretty?" she asked. "Pretty isn't the word for her," I replied. "She's probably one of the most beautiful women on the planet. She's more like a daughter to me than any of my daughters." Her smile lit up the entire restaurant. "Stanley, do you trust her?" she asked. "Of course I trust her," I replied. "Good, because she's been thinking a lot lately and she thinks she's found the right person for you." "Honey, don't start," I began. "I don't need that either. I'm just not ready for it yet. I just got out of a 30-year relationship that sucked the life out of me. I had to leave to save my self-respect. I just want to be happy being myself, okay?" "Well, when you're ready, let me know," she said. A couple of days after that conversation, it happened. I was running in the park. It was one of my easy days and the sun was shining. I knew every step of that trail because I had been running there almost every morning since Linda and I broke up. Over the next few months, that park became almost like my home. I knew which trees to hide under if it started to rain, and even the perfect spots for interval training if I was too lazy to go to the treadmill. It wasn't like she didn't belong there. After all, my park was her home. She had been at home here from the moment I first saw her. She was one of those women who defied age. She was slim, but not excessively so. Older women who are very thin usually look unhealthy or even skeletal. They look as if they might break a hip just getting out of a chair. This woman could have been anywhere between 40 and 60, but she simply glowed with health. Her smile was contagious to everyone she met. Her body was incredible. Her heart-shaped face seemed strangely familiar to me, even though I had never seen her before. With each lap around the park, she became more and more interesting. While I was running around the park, drenched in sweat and trying to keep my form, she seemed to be doing whatever she wanted. On the first lap, she was running, not as fast as me, but with a good stride and at a good pace. The next time I saw her, she had stopped near a group of flowers and seemed to be smelling each one to see if they all smelled the same. The next time I saw her, she was jogging slowly with another woman, and they were chatting animatedly. The next time, she was walking confidently, holding a bouquet of flowers she had picked on the bank of a small pond in the park. It was this lap that almost killed me. It was on that circle that she turned her head slightly and smiled at me. I know that at 54 I am too young for moments like this, but when she smiled at me, I lost all sense of time and space. I had never experienced such a feeling before. Not once, in more than half a century of my life, had any event ever caused me to feel this way. I ran off the path I know so well that I could run it in the dark with my eyes closed and crashed into a tree. Several neighbors laughed loudly at me. I got up and ran again, and looking back over my shoulder, I saw a picture that has remained in my memory to this day. I loved watching her cover her mouth with her hand to hide her obvious surprise. But the joy in her eyes destroyed my life. She drove me crazy. There was so much about her that I couldn't wrap my head around. Her hair wasn't very short or very long, but it was so full of life. It was like a boy's haircut that she had let grow to her shoulders. And it wasn't gray hair. It was silvery white. Why the hell didn't she dye it? Linda started dyeing her hair as soon as she noticed the first gray strands. If this woman had dyed her hair, she could easily pass for 30. But she seemed proud of her age. There wasn't a single wrinkle on her face, and her skin was very smooth. And it wasn't just her face or her body. Everything about her was unclassifiable, even her workouts, if you could call them that. Like most people in the park, I did the same thing. I went out and ran. I did specific exercises designed to improve physical fitness in certain areas such as endurance, speed, or strength. She moved from one exercise to the next in a way that defied conventional wisdom, but their effectiveness was undeniable. It seemed that her entire plan was designed to train not only the body but also the soul. Depending on her mood, she would sit on the flower beds or run with the children, and she rewarded everyone around her with incredible smiles. I was sure that it would be worth crashing into a tree again on the next lap if she gave me one more smile. Technically, my run was over, but I decided to run another lap or two to see her again. Unfortunately, when I returned, she was nowhere to be found. That day I had lunch with Georgina and couldn't hold back. "What made you so happy?" she asked. "What made you so happy?" she asked. "What made you so happy?" she asked. "Georgina, today, in the park, I saw the most beautiful woman I've ever seen except for you," I said. Georgina narrowed her eyes slightly. "No, you didn't," she replied coldly. "Didn't you tell me less than a month ago that you weren't ready to date anyone?" "Well, yes," I said. "Georgina, I didn't date her. I just saw her. She was just, I don't know, special. I'll probably never see her again. I didn't even talk to her." "So you met some girl in the park, and now suddenly your salmon is ready to swim against the current," she said angrily. "Honey," I said, trying not to let the situation get worse. "Don't, Stanley," she said. "I have plans for you." "What?" I asked. "Stanley, I love you," she said. My heart raced. "I want you in my life. I want you to settle down and live with someone who will love you the way you deserve." It was a nightmare. Georgina was beautiful, but she was too young for me. This was my life, not one of those stories where an old man meets a woman who's too young for him, and they end up getting married and living happily ever after because he treats her well. When you read stories like that, you don't have to wonder what the hell they have in common besides love. Damn, I love my car, but I'm not going to marry it. What do couples like that talk about? Let's see. A 50-year-old man probably remembers Van Halen from when they were good. A 20-year-old girl probably thinks Britney Spears is old music and doesn't know that Madonna isn't actually British. What the hell do they have in common? And what are they going to do in a few years when he can't get around anymore and she can't run down the street? Then we move on to the second part of the divorce story, the second generation. This story begins like this. I broke up with a cheating bitch. Then I met the love of my life, and we broke up until she also became a cheating bitch. No thanks, that's not for me. Georgina, dear, I said, I love you too. But I love you like a daughter. You're too young for me. Georgina contorted her beautiful heart-shaped face and lowered her head. Her long, thick hair covered her face, and when she looked up again, she burst out laughing. She laughed for about 5 minutes, then looked at me with tears streaming down her cheeks. It was a real blow to my ego. Of course I'm Stanley, she said, smiling. I want to introduce you to my grandmother. She's a few years older than you, but it's part of my cunning plan to make the two most important people in my life happy. And you know what? I feel the same way about you as you feel about me. That's why I really want you and my grandmother to make up, because then you can be part of my family. But you're already part of my heart. Her kind words helped calm my wounded pride. I told her that just because I was attracted to one woman didn't mean I was ready for something more. But when I was ready to start dating, I would let her know. Stanley, she said, in the meantime, we'll go on dates, right? She smiled at me and it reminded me of something, but I couldn't remember what. I just nodded and smiled back at her. Over the next few weeks, Georgina kept mentioning her grandmother, and I kept pushing her away. In my mind, I pictured a cheerful, overweight old woman with a heart of gold. If you can picture Mrs. Claus, you know what I mean. She had to be as sweet as pie and as cuddly as a teddy bear. I figured that if Georgina was around 20, her mother was probably around 40 and her grandmother was 60 or 70. Even if the analogy with Mrs. Claus was wrong, it was just impossible. Betty White is cute in her own way, of course, but I couldn't possibly be ready for that. I had to find a way to delicately explain this to Georgina. In the meantime, I wandered around the park every day but never met the woman of my dreams. What's more, the disappointment of not meeting her began to weigh on me. Finally, Georgina persuaded me to agree to meet her elderly grandmother. I decided that we would go out to dinner somewhere and then I would tell her, or maybe her grandmother would tell her, that we both thought each other were very nice, but there was no chemistry between us. But I had to go through with it because dinner with her grandmother was the only gift Georgina wanted for her birthday. I made a reservation at a very nice restaurant and started getting ready. Funny, but I was a little depressed that day because it was supposed to be Linda and my wedding anniversary the next day. At least this year I didn't have to buy that cow a gift. It was also hard for me to accept that it had been 9 months since the divorce and almost 11 months since the day I caught her with Dino at the dumpster. I didn't think about those days very often. I don't know if it was because I had pushed them out of my mind to avoid feeling the pain or because I simply liked my life now. I drove Georgina to the restaurant in my Mustang. Her grandmother was there to meet us. I had prepared well for this meeting. I was ready to be polite and cordial. I wanted her grandmother to like me because I considered Georgina my daughter. And her grandmother was very important to her. I didn't want her grandmother to dislike me because I really wanted Georgina to remain a part of my life. Georgina and I sat down at a table and ordered appetizers. She called her grandmother and found out that she was running late. Georgina told me that the old lady was still in her right mind, but had reached the age where she didn't care anymore. She was in no hurry. She just did everything at her own pace. Today, for example, she was helping someone plant flowers and simply lost track of time. I imagined a frail, drooling old woman in the early stages of Alzheimer's. But I was determined to make a good impression on the old lady for the sake of the dahlias. And then the worst thing that could have happened. I was looking for a waiter to order drinks when I caught a glimpse of her out of the corner of my eye. She was impossible to miss. It was the woman from the park. I had been obsessed with her for weeks, and now she had appeared at the worst possible time and in the worst possible place. What would Georgina think if I left her with her grandmother? The woman walked to the other end of the restaurant. At least I wouldn't have to sit there staring at her while I tried to focus on Georgina and her grandmother. But after a few seconds, I realized I had a problem. I really wanted to know who she was with. Was she married? Was she here with her boyfriend? I had to find out. So I excused myself and walked to the other end of the restaurant. I could always pretend I was going to the restroom, even though it was on our side of the room. I looked around the entire room but didn't see her. I looked at every table. I was starting to look silly, so I went back to my table. When I got there, I almost had a heart attack. The woman from the park was sitting in my chair talking to Dahlia. "Excuse me," I said. "You're sitting in my seat." She looked at me, and it happened again. There was a strange combination of different shades of blue in her eyes. I almost missed what she said because I was too busy looking at her. She smiled back at me, too. The next moment, Georgina snapped her fingers. "Is this going to be a problem?" she asked. "It's just a chair, for crying out loud." Grandma and I looked at her in surprise. "What?" I asked. "What the hell is going on here?" Georgina asked. "Tongue," Grandma said, smiling. "I'm sorry," Georgina said. "But you two are acting strange, and I want this evening to go well. It's my birthday." "Stanley, you went up to Grandma and said she was sitting in your seat. She said you moved your legs and lost your seat. Then you just sat or stood there looking at each other. I should have known this wasn't going to end well." "Haven't you seen any nice trees lately?" Grandma asked, smiling. "Haven't you seen any nice trees lately?" Grandma asked, smiling. "Haven't you seen any nice trees lately?" Grandma asked, smiling. "I haven't seen a tree I liked since then," I replied sharply. "Oh boy," she said. "You're a clever one, aren't you?" "So what the hell is going on here?" Georgina asked. I sat down on a chair next to Georgina, giving her my seat. "That's better," said Grandma. "Now I can look at the man my granddaughter admires so much." "Now I understand why you charmed her so much," she said. "Grandma," Georgina hissed. "It's not like that." "What does it look like?" Grandma smiled. There was definitely something special about this woman. She knew how to convey her emotions so that the person she was addressing understood them completely. Her smile spoke volumes, and it was directed only at me. "What are you two smiling about?" Georgina asked again. Georgina asked again. Georgina asked again. She was confused. "Georgina, dear," I began. "Remember the woman in the park I told you about? The arrogant bitch you were raving about even though you've only seen her once?" Georgina asked. "I thought you'd forgotten about her." "No," I said. "I couldn't get her out of my head. I've been going to the park every day since then, hoping to see her again." "Oh, damn," said Georgina. "Stanley, why didn't you tell me it was so serious? I didn't know she made such a strong impression on you. If I had known, I would never have tried to set you up." "He made quite an impression on her, too," said Grandma, "although not as strong as she did on that tree." She laughed again, and I just stared at her. Her smile and the sparkle in her eyes were mesmerizing. She would have gone to that park every day, too, if she had lived in that town. That day, she had only gone there to drop off a check and visit her beloved granddaughter. But it turned out there was nothing to worry about, because someone else had taken care of her granddaughter. Someone had taken care of her, found her another job, and even cheered her up when she needed it. "Are we having the same conversation?" Georgina asked. "Georgina, your grandmother was the woman I saw in the park," I said. Georgina looked at both of us as if trying to focus on a ball during a tennis match. "So, you two," she began. "Do you like each other?" Her grandmother replied, still smiling at me. "Very much," I replied. The rest of the evening was magical. Georgina's grandmother, Margaret, and I got to know each other better. We talked about everything that came to mind, while Georgina just watched and smiled. I wondered how she could be a grandmother looking so young, but she just smiled. Lindy, at 49, was 5 years younger than me, and Margaret must have been much younger than Lind. Later, I learned that Margaret, at 56, was 2 years older than me. She told me her whole life story. She had married very young and had a child in her early 20s. Georgina's mother was a wild girl and got into trouble very early on. She gave birth to Georgina and ran away immediately, and no one had heard from her since. Georgina was raised by her grandparents. 6 years ago, Georgina's grandfather died in a construction accident. Since then, her grandmother had lived alone. She didn't date anyone or even look at men. She just didn't want to. Georgina filled her head with stories about me, and Margaret decided that she would at least come to Georgina's birthday party and meet me. Georgina and I told her the story of my divorce and the reasons why it happened. By that time, the waiters had politely informed us that the restaurant was about to close. Margaret and I leaned against the table, holding hands, while Georgina smiled from ear to ear. "But we didn't even get to dance," I said. "We have plenty of time for that," Margaret replied. "If you don't mind being seen with an older woman." "If it were up to me, I wouldn't date another woman for the rest of my life," I said. This elicited another incredible smile from Margaret. "Stanley, what about me?" Georgina asked. Over the next few weeks, Margaret traveled back and forth between her home state of Tennessee and Arizona so often that she eventually just moved in with Georgina. After a few weeks, it became clear that she wasn't spending enough time at Georgina's house, so she moved in with me. If I thought I was happy in my life after getting rid of Linda, it was nothing compared to waking up every morning with Margaret in my arms. I walked around so happy that I could have exploded at any moment because my body just wasn't made for that kind of happiness. And you know what happened, of course. Fate just decided to throw a wrench in the works. Margaret and I were walking arm in arm down the aisle of our local Kroger store. We had just moved into a small but cozy house on the edge of the desert. The neighborhood was perfect. We were only 10 miles from Georgina on the highway. We could decorate the house any way we wanted, with a small pool and a patio in the backyard where we could sit together and watch the sun rise and set. We also had a large, comfortable hammock for long afternoon naps. Life was good. Anyway, we were at Kroger. We were planning a barbecue. I picked out a large assortment of steaks and meats. Margaret bought salmon and enough fruit that we could make a large fruit salad as a side dish or just in case. Georgina brought home another guy to introduce us. Over the past few months, we had met several guys. Perhaps our happiness had prompted Georgina to seek her own happiness. She'd been telling us about this guy for several weeks and was convinced that he could be the one. A couple of hours later, when the grill was ready, we heard Georgina's excited voice as the car pulled up to my Mustang GT and Margaret's convertible. Georgina ran out onto the patio and rushed toward me, stretching out her long legs and hair. Under my grandmother's amused gaze, I quickly replied, "Sorry, Grandma, I just miss him sometimes." "Oh," said Georgina. "Stanley, Grandma, this is Carl Thomas," I said. "Hello, Mr. Laurel," said Carl. "I like your house, and I think I love your daughter." He took a big gulp. "Do you two know each other?" Georgina asked. "Yes," I replied. "I watched him grow up. His older brother is married to my daughter, Amber." "Oh, damn," Georgina said. "That's Dee's language," Margaret said. "Well, regardless of who knows whom, let's just have a good time and enjoy dinner, okay?" We all agreed. Later, we sat and enjoyed the evening. We watched the indescribable beauty of the sky changing colors over the desert as the moon rose. "Mr. Laurel, is something wrong?" Carl asked. "I remember when we were growing up, you were one of the coolest dads we knew. Now, years later, you're still the same, but my brother and Amber never talk about you. And Amber gets really angry when anyone mentions you. My brother has nothing against you. He remembers you just as well as I do. But Amber cuts his balls off when he disagrees with her, so he doesn't say a word." I sighed. It had been a long time since I had thought about my family. Every time someone mentions the old days or what we used to do, Amber starts saying, "after what he did to my mom." And we don't go back to that topic. Because of that, I don't spend much time with them. I feel like my brother is slowly dying, but he loves Amber so much that he has no choice, especially now that she's pregnant. I just shook my head. The good mood of the evening was gone. "Carl," I said, "I hope things work out with Georgina. Georgina is much better than Amber. Amber seems to have fallen under her mother's influence, and that's not good. The best thing you can do for your brother is to get him out of there." "I'm very sorry, dear." Margaret came over and took my hand. She nodded to me. "It looks like Amber is becoming a mother again," I said. "If this doesn't stop, she'll turn into a vengeful, domineering bitch like her mother, and your brother will slowly die, just like he died with me. They'll fight over everything, and he'll gradually lose all self-respect. She'll use everything in her power to get her way and control him until their life together turns into a bloody series of battles in an endless war. You think I look happy? Well, you're right. I'm much happier than I would have been if I had stayed with Linda. Don't get me wrong, I love and miss my daughter, but she made her own choice. I tried to keep in touch with her. She sided with her mother and pushed me out of her life, not the other way around. And Linda apparently hasn't told anyone the truth about why we divorced. It seems like she's trying to turn my daughter against me so that I take the blame for what she did." "Carl," I said, "do you want to save your brother from a hellish life?" "Of course," he replied. "Okay, next weekend I think you should invite Danny and Amber over for a barbecue. I think it's time everyone knew what really happened. Don't tell them which house they're coming to. Just say you want to introduce them to your girlfriend's family." Margaret and I spent the next week preparing ourselves emotionally for what lay ahead. We talked at length about what might happen and what it would mean for us. In the end, we both realized that it wouldn't mean anything, at least not to us. No matter how it ended, I was happy that Margaret was in my life. So much so that on that Wednesday, I took her into town and married her right there on the spot. It was just the two of us with Georgina. It didn't matter because we were already married, but technically. The whole point of the barbecue was to prevent Danny from going through what I went through, and if it taught him a lesson about how not to behave with Carl and Georgina, so much the better. And finally, if it helped Amber stop clinging to her mother and allowed me to get my daughter back and maybe even be a part of my grandchild's life when he or she was born, so much the better. It was a win-win situation because no matter how the evening ended, I would still have Margaret and Georgina. On the morning of the barbecue, Carl called us in a panic. Everything was going according to plan, but there was one snag. Amber insisted that Linda come too. If Linda couldn't come, Amber wouldn't come, and she would most likely talk Danny out of it. I told Carl it was fine. Let her bring Linda. Everything had been planned in advance. We agreed that Margaret and I would not be around when they arrived. Carl would be home with Georgina. Amber and Georgina had never met. Danny didn't know Georgina either. Linda knew Georgina, but we hoped she wouldn't connect Georgina with me. Everything was going according to plan. Carl and Georgina sat everyone down and made themselves comfortable. They were sitting on the porch when Margaret drove up and got out to greet them. She apologized for being late, saying she had stopped at the store for beer and other drinks. Danny asked about her Mustang and said he really liked it. She replied that her husband would like it even more. Amber snorted and told him not to get his hopes up because they needed a more practical car. Linda, who had hardly spoken, asked Margaret about her bracelet. At that moment, I pulled up. No one noticed me as I got out of the car and walked over to the group. "I had a bracelet just like that," Linda complained. "No, Mom, you didn't," Amber replied coldly. "One of your friends said that Dad bought you the same bracelet but never gave it to you." "I think your friend was mistaken." "Amber, your dad bought me that bracelet," Linda hissed. "He left the receipt when he left me. I think he just went crazy with drinking and gambling." "Mom, what does it matter?" Amber asked. "He left you for no reason and left you alone. He was a selfish bastard." "I highly doubt that," Margaret said calmly. "How do you know that?" Amber asked. "Were you there?" "No, I wasn't there," Margaret replied. "But your mother was right. And Amber, you need to let go of your hatred for a second. How do you really remember your father? Was he selfish when you were growing up?" "Well, he was wonderful when I was little, but maybe I just remember him wrong. If he was so wonderful, why did he leave Mom for no reason?" "And what do you mean Mom was right?" Amber asked. "Because it's your mother's bracelet," Margaret replied. She took off the bracelet and turned it over. Amber read the inscription. "Linda, after all these years and tears, with love, Stan." Linda had been struggling with depression for a long time. She was already taking medication, but when she heard the inscription, she switched to something else. "My bracelet! My bracelet!" she cried. "How did you get it?" Amber asked. "I gave it to her," I said. "I wanted to polish it and change the inscription. But I asked him not to," Margaret said. "I wanted it to remain a reminder of a very foolish woman who lost everything over nothing." "My bracelet," Linda hissed. "I want my bracelet." "What the hell are you doing here, Dad?" Amber asked. "After you ran away from us, you shouldn't have shown your face." "Amber, I never abandoned anyone, especially not you," I said. "I tried to stay in touch with you after the divorce and even during it, but you kept bringing up your mother and what she went through. In the end, I told you I didn't want to hear about her. And you said that if we couldn't talk about it, then maybe we shouldn't talk at all. I kept calling you even after that, but you always hung up on me." "Dad, Mom suffered so much," Amber said. "And you just disappeared from her life. You didn't even tell her why. You left her with no money and no place to live. That was wrong. There was no reason for it. She loved you." Tears streamed down Amber's face. I reached out my arms, and she threw herself into them like a little girl and hugged me. "You're still to blame for what Dad did," she said after a few moments. "Amber," I said, "we need to sit down and talk. Carl, get the steaks ready. Georgina, dear, cut up some fruit and make some drinks while we talk." "What about Mom?" Amber asked. "I think she'd rather lie in the hammock," I replied. Amber followed her mother, who was standing there looking at me and whispering, "My bracelet." Her eyes were huge and unfocused. She looked like a fat version of Gollum. When we were all seated at the table, I took Margaret's hand and began. "Amber, your mom and I have been married for a long time. We had some very good years, and I loved her. But over time, your mom changed. She stopped understanding what was really important. When we first got married, the most important thing was that we were together. Then you came along. Then other things came to the forefront. All couples have disagreements. It's normal and healthy for couples to learn how to deal with them. In fact, how you deal with disagreements can strengthen your marriage, but over the years, your mom became more and more controlling. Danny looked directly at Amber. In the end, honey, our marriage became more like a battle of wills than a real loving relationship. The last time we fought was several weeks ago. It was after I retired, and we were tired of fighting while living in different countries. Your mom got to the point where she stopped asking me for anything. She practically ordered me to do what she wanted. And when I refused, the answer was always the same: no sex. It became her favorite weapon. Amber looked at me strangely. She advised me to do the same, she said. She looked at Danny. It works. Danny looked at the floor. No, honey, I said. It doesn't work. Everything you do has consequences that you may not notice for years. In my case, it got to the point where I just got tired of controlling the situation and decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. Our last fight was so stupid that I still wonder about it. She ordered me to take out the trash. I refused. Then she resorted to her usual strategy. She said that if I didn't take out the trash, we wouldn't fight for a long time. I agreed. Amber looked at me strangely. Yeah, it didn't work, I said. So we didn't do it for a few weeks. We didn't talk to each other for a few days. And even when we did talk again, the stalemate continued in the bedroom. I was just pushed to my limit. Your mom's lucky, I said. Since she didn't do that to me, I can use it as an excuse to find someone who will. Amber looked at Margaret. Margaret smiled at her but didn't say anything. I nudged her with my elbow. Amber, I never cheated on your mother. Margaret and I didn't meet until after the divorce was final. But maybe I had someone else. Anyway, after a while, I noticed that your mom was suddenly nice to me again. I felt terrible for fighting over something so stupid when we supposedly loved each other. I guess I started to realize that my feelings for her were way more important than some silly argument. So I planned a grand Valentine's Day so we could forget about the fight and be friends again. I bought a bracelet, flowers, and a bunch of other things. Linda lit up again and walked over to him. Do you love me again? She asked. Do you love me again? She asked. Do you love me again? She asked. I nodded. You love me even when I was fat and mean? I nodded again. Then what happened, Stanley? She asked. Why did you leave me? Linda, I watched you take out the trash the day before Valentine's Day, I said. Linda's eyes widened and she started to cry. Let's go, Amber, she shouted. I don't want to listen to this nonsense anymore. Why, Mom? Amber asked. Because she doesn't want you to know the real reason we got divorced, I said. He made it all up, Linda snapped. Amber, let's go, damn it. Tell me, Dad, Amber said. When I followed your mom, she went into the alley behind our house. It was dirty and disgusting. I thought she was just going to throw the trash bags in the dumpster and go back to the apartment. But they took everything out. Put it in their car. Amber and Danny were in shock. I know it sounds bad, kid, but they've clearly done this before. It wasn't a one-time thing. But for me, it was everything. It was the end of my marriage. But she was fine lying in a dump with that pervert. He's lying, baby, Linda whined. You know I would never do that. I put the phone on the table and pressed the button. The video was already playing. Linda tried to grab the phone. Amber, if Danny had been with another woman, would you have stayed married to him? I asked. Amber was too lost in her thoughts to answer. Carl brought 2 plates with large steaks and placed them in front of Amber and Danny. Salmon for me and the runner, Margaret said to Carl, and he nodded. So, Dad, why didn't you... Amber began. She didn't finish her sentence, so I spoke first. What was I supposed to do? I asked. I was hurt and very confused. I think I could have handled the situation better. I'm sure I acted unfairly, but I wanted to regain some of my self-respect. The only way to do that was to take it away from someone else. For me to come out of this situation intact, Dino and your mother had to lose some of theirs. So my mom was abandoned and left with nothing, Amber said. She has mood swings and episodes where she drifts in and out of reality. And all this time I blamed you. But it wasn't your fault. It was actually... guilt, I said. Now that she knows why we broke up, maybe she can start picking up the pieces. But Dad, why didn't you talk to her then? Amber asked. Why didn't you just walk up to them and beat them up in that alley? I don't know, I said. At first I was just in shock from what had happened. I didn't know why it happened, and I still don't. At the time, my self-confidence wasn't at its best. Think about it. I was in good shape and considered myself good-looking, and your mother, the woman I loved and married, decided to do that with a fat, greasy, smug janitor and roll around in the dirt with him. What kind of loser was I? What was the point? She probably just said it was her body and she could give it to whoever she wanted. I would never have done that, said Linda. Stanley, I loved you as much as you loved me. You just don't understand what my life was like. When we first met, I was pretty. Over the years, the world around us changed. When we got married, it was considered normal for a woman to stay home and take care of the children and the house. In the last 10 years, that has become rare. Most of my friends, even the married ones, work or have worked at some point. Even those who have children sometimes go back to work when their children are older. You, Stanley, have spent your whole life away from home. You're a brilliant engineer. You've got patents coming out of your ears. Your company paid you millions to just walk away and leave them your patents. Even Amber had a life outside our home. She had friends, clubs, and all that other stuff. I had nothing but our life and our home. And yes, Stanley, over the years I let myself go. When we first met, I didn't need to work out. I was naturally slim and beautiful. I watched you run and lift weights and just laughed at you because I didn't need to do any of that. All I had to do was bend over in a tight skirt and you did everything I wanted. In our house, I was the only one in control. Even after I had Amber and my body filled out a little, I could still get you to do whatever I wanted. So why bother sweating and groaning? Then I convinced myself that I was getting older and that most women my age had a little flab, a few bags under their eyes, and a few extra pounds. But Stanley, damn it, you were consistent. If one of my friends talked about a car, or I saw an ad for a vacation in Jamaica, I knew I could have it. All I had to do was call Stanley, and we'd be on a plane in no time. It never occurred to me that you were doing it not because I controlled you, but because you loved me. Until you told Amber a few minutes ago that you could just walk away and find someone else, I didn't realize how much you loved me to put up with. All my antics. But Stanley was all I had. I know I was wrong, but it was all I had. When we first met, I adored you and all the nights we spent together, but over the last few years, I seem to have forgotten that. And Stanley, never doubt that I truly loved you. We created and raised a beautiful daughter, and I love her, but I've always loved you. There's an old saying, if all you have is a hammer, you see nails everywhere. And when you said you could go without sex with me, it just shattered my self-confidence. I felt like a nobody. Think about it, Stanley. You've kept yourself in shape all these years. There aren't many men your age who look as good as you do. And I let myself get old, and fat, and ugly. The only person who ever wanted me was you. And I let myself believe that it wasn't because you loved me, although now I realize that it was. But I thought it was all about sex. It never occurred to me that all women of our kind give themselves away. And when you decided you could do without me, I felt ashamed, as I said. And then Dino showed up. That bastard always hit on anyone in a dress. That first night I took out the trash, he was there. I couldn't even throw the damn bags in the trash. They were so heavy I could barely lift them. I always put everything I could in the bags, thinking my big, strong husband would drop everything and take them out for me. Anyway, Dino saw me struggling, came over and threw them out for me. When he picked up the first bag, his hand accidentally touched me. He apologized. And to be honest, I was so angry at you that I didn't even realize what he had done. I told him to forget about it. He replied something like, "Yeah, it's just the price of business." The next evening, he came back and while throwing out the bags, deliberately grabbed my hand. I was shocked, but I remembered the past, so I didn't say anything. The next evening, he told me that the price was going up. All kinds of thoughts were running through my head. But the thing is, I liked that a guy younger than us wanted me. Somehow, the scales were balanced. You didn't want me anymore, but he did. That meant that in some strange way I was still in control. But that was also an illusion. Over the next few weeks, he kept raising his demands until we got down to business. At first, I felt uncomfortable and guilty. But Stanley, part of me needed it. I needed someone to want me. And you didn't want anything else. And Dino was smart. He knew he had me in his power. So every time I resisted, he would just leave for a few days. I know it's the most cliché thing in the world, but It wasn't about the sex. I didn't get any pleasure from him. But if I didn't pretend to want it or said I didn't like it, he would just tell me there were other women in the house who did. Or he would just disappear for a while. By the time I caught him again, I was so desperate that I would do anything he said just to have someone want me. I learned to act like I liked it, even if I didn't. And I learned to say things that fed his ego. I had to become Stanley because without him, I had nothing. "Why do you think I started being nice to you again?" she asked. Even though I didn't win the argument, I basically gave up. Remember, I said we could do it whenever you wanted. But Stanley didn't want to anymore. Now I realize it was because you saw me with him and you were so upset that you were going to leave me. Then I heard from one of my friends about the bracelet and the evening you had planned for us. It really could have been a new beginning for us, Stanley, and I wanted that. That's why I kept trying to get back into your bed. Stanley, you should have just told me that you needed me. I never stopped loving you. It just got out of control. Mom, why did you let me believe that Dad was to blame for everything? Amber shouted. And all the advice you gave me. It's all just another one of your illusions of control, isn't it? There should be no control in a relationship, I said. Honey, the best way to control yourself is to love someone so much that they'll never leave you, like Margaret and me. What about Dino? Linda asked. Stanley, you fired him, didn't you? I just nodded and smiled. I didn't say anything, but I wasn't the only one who fired Dino. Dino walked around limping from beatings and never recovered from the peanut dance. So he was practically a eunuch until he died a few months ago. I had nothing to do with that. Dino was always out of shape. He died of a massive heart attack. Listen, I said. The past is gone. We can't go back and start all over again. I'm not sure I'd want to even if I could. I miss my daughter, but in the process, I've built a relationship with my other daughter/granddaughter, Georgina. I would love to be a part of Amber and Danny's lives again, but Amber, you need to look at your life from a different perspective. I don't want your marriage to turn out like your mother's and mine. We're here to make sure that doesn't happen. And I think it's time for all of us to let go of the past. It happened, but it's behind us now. And looking back on the situation, I can admit that maybe it was partly my fault. Maybe I played a part in making your mother the way she is. Maybe I should have encouraged her to get out of the house and develop her own interests so she wouldn't be so dependent on me. Then there would have been fewer control issues. I can also admit that I was far from perfect myself. I was probably just as stubborn as your mom, and I got to the point where I was stuck and didn't want to move forward. Maybe if we had both learned to compromise, this would never have happened. I also think that maybe I'm just lazy. Maybe it all started because I didn't want to get my butt off the couch and take out the trash. So, Linda, I apologize for my part in this. I also want to apologize for leaving you like that. It wasn't the most mature thing to do, but that doesn't excuse your actions. And to be honest, I'm still not ready to forgive you for the blatant disrespect you showed me. Stanley, I want you to understand, Linda said. Nothing I did was directed at you. I was just struggling to find my identity outside the United States. Stanley, my mind is a mess. I'm currently taking several different antidepressants and mood stabilizers. Even my psychiatrist isn't sure if my mental illness caused the end of our marriage or if it led to the behavior that destroyed our marriage. She just doesn't know. But I can tell you what I know. Not a day goes by that I don't regret it. Not a day goes by that I don't wish we were together. There was a long pause as everyone waited for me to say something. However, Margaret saved me because everything was going well, and she wanted it to stay that way. Well, I don't regret that you two aren't still together, she said, and everyone laughed. What about you, Dad? Amber asked. What about your drinking and gambling addiction? No comment, I replied. I still had no intention of giving Linda a penny. Whatever her reasons for mocking me, I didn't think I owed her anything. I'm sure some people looked at me and thought I was still being stubborn and acting like a jerk, but I didn't see it that way. For over 30 years, I had gone to work and provided Linda with the lifestyle she loved and expected. Linda had never had to work a day in her life. All she had to do was say, I want, and she got everything she wanted. I still can't figure out how to repay her for destroying our marriage and affecting the lives of so many people. Maybe I'm just stubborn, but that's how I feel. That's why I didn't answer my daughter's question, because I didn't want to lie to her. She and Linda may well try to drag me into court and renegotiate the terms of the divorce settlement. Then I'll have to find another way to keep my money away from them. He still doesn't like taking out the trash, Margaret said. But now, I know not to make him do it. Even Linda laughed. Okay, guys, let's eat, I said. We spent the next few hours eating, drinking, and having a good time. We agreed to see each other often and try to be a good, strong family. I was happy to be a part of Amber's life again and sincerely hoped she could change. But at least the air was clear, and I was able to put the past behind me. As for the future, I love Margaret and always will. And Georgina is still my daughter and always will be. She and I are even closer than I am to Amber, even though we're not related by blood. She married Carl, and yes, they named their first child Stanley after me, and his little sister Stana. Linda and I never became friends. There was too much pain and suffering caused mainly by her jealousy and controlling nature. Margaret and I, on the other hand, became friends. Margaret started it that very first evening. Well, maybe Linda did. When they were about to leave, Linda walked over to Margaret and thanked her for inviting her to her home. Margaret looked at me, and I just shrugged. She took the bracelet off her wrist and put it on Linda's. "Keep it," she said. "It was meant for you anyway. Besides, a bracelet is supposed to symbolize the love of the person who bought it, and I bought it." "And it will always be with you," I said. As we watched them drive off into the sunset, I hugged Margaret and she sighed. "I'm glad that shit is finally over," I said. "The past is behind us, and now we can build our future together." "Stanley, my wrist feels empty," Margaret said, smiling. "Why are you telling me that?" I asked. "You gave me your bracelet." "Because it was her bracelet," she replied. You have to buy me one just like it." "Margaret, that was almost 2 years ago," I said. "Do you realize how much that bracelet costs now? The price of gold has almost doubled, and diamonds have gone up too." She just smiled at me. "Okay," I said. The jewelry store in the mall is probably still open. I think they don't close until 10. "Tomorrow, dear," she said. "Today I have something else to do besides my wrist." "What?" I asked. "I have a soft, wet spot between my legs," she said. "It misses you very much. It has been for several hours. Shall we do it in our bed, or do you want me to caress you?" The end. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for new videos.